So for your first question po is, how did you start becoming a journalist?
You mean sa professional field
Ah.
ABS? Okay. I applied for a job even before I graduated in 2006. So I've been sending out applications because I was so scared I would not get a job. So there was one ABS-CBN boss, Ms. Carrie Villa. I emailed her and told her I wanted to be a reporter. And she replied right away. So even before graduation, I already had my HR exam tests and everything. But I was accepted initially not as a reporter, but as a production assistant and writer for ANC. You know, yeah. So yun ang una kong trabaho. For 3 months, I was assisting in our news programs. I was booking studio guests and phone interviews and writing stories for our newscasts. And then, one day, one of our bosses noticed me in the newsroom and said, "Hey, weren't you the one who applied to be a reporter?" And she said, "We need someone right now and just do a screen test." So there, so nag-screen test ako at natanggap naman. I think it's in September 2008, that was when I started becoming a field reporter. That's what I'm doing today. They gave me 1 month training, and after that, I just started on the job.
My next question, what made you pursue this job? What inspired you? Is being a journalist and reporter your original ambition, or do you have anything in particular before?
That has always been my ambition. Bata pa lang ako, mahilig na manood ng balita sa TV, ginagaya ko yung mga news anchor, reporter, lalo na TV pa. So TV pa rin lang pinapanood ko dati. At nagbabasa din ako dati. So noon pa lang, meron na akong desire na maging mamamahayan. Kaya talagang kung pwede maglaki ko yung din gano'n. So, I consciously designed my student life preparing for it. Well, of course, I took up TV communication in college. And not only that, I also became part of the student newspaper. I was a staff writer, then I eventually became section editor because I believe that would help me prepare for a professional career in journalism. And I also took internships, well, because it's also required. And so I never saw myself doing anything else. I just wanted to be a journalist because I have this desire to be always in the know and to help people be in the know too, and to have that privilege of informing them. Medyo, alam mo yun, may feeling of accomplishment ako kapag may alam mo kung informasyon na sinishare ko halimbawa sa mga kaibigan. So, may pagkachismosa din ito, kaya bagay sa akin ang trabaho ko.
So talagang passion niyo po yung pagiging isang journalist?
Oo naman, siguro hindi naman ako tatagal pag hindi ko mahal ng trabaho. Dahil maraming sakripisyo. Hindi mo talaga makakasawa pamilya mo matagal. Siguro 1 month na sila pinakikita. Kasi yung weekend, talaga itutulog mo na lang kasi pagod na pagod sa tulog. Nakakapagod siya physically at lalo sa utak mo. Talagang bawat story may isi para sa nag-aaral. Hindi basta-basta. So marami siyang sakripisyo na kung hindi mo talaga mahal ang trabaho, hindi mo tatagalan. At kasama na dyan yung hindi na makataas na talaga yung sweldo kumpara halimbawa sa mga abogado o banker o sa corporate world. So it's something that you have to love. You cannot do it just because you want to get rich, you want it as a hobby, because there's too much sacrifice involved. There's just one basic thing that for me is very important when it comes to writing. It has to be, especially news, it has to be clear and direct to the point. You cannot use flowery language. You cannot delay the point that you're trying to make in whatever story that you're writing. Dapat headline pa lang, alam na ng viewer ano ba yung na-expect ko sa story. Dapat doon pa lang sa lead sentence pa lang, alam na nila kung ano yung tatapuin ng story. At doon pa lang dapat sa simula ng story, nakuha mo na yung attention. So I always make it a point to make it really clear, concise, and direct to the point, aside from giving it spunk and spice to get the attention of our readers. Because there's no no point writing a story if no one reads it.
So what do you think is the
There's a lot of ways, but there's nothing beats being on the ground, being there to witness events firsthand, talking to people, getting information straight from the actors in a story. For example, you can't report on the INC rally without actually going there. But we have this thing called armchair journalism. They're just at the office sitting down, making calls, asking people and officials about information and writing something about it. That's fine. You cannot stay there. For me, a real journalist is someone who goes out in the field, does the dirty work, and actually talks to people and does the story after that. Because nothing beats being there and bearing witness.
Next is, what do you think is the hardest thing about being a journalist? Why?
Well, in your personal terms, it's really spending less time with the people you love, your family. Sabi nga nila, for you to date a journalist, you have to be flexible, you have to be understanding because the job requires a lot. Sacrifice even your weekend. Yeah, so you devote your life to it, sometimes at the expense of the lives and your time for the ones you love. You are able to strike a balance as you go along. Also, we live in a society where there's too much expectation of the media to be fair and objective, and that's not, well, for me, truly possible. So it's hard to be a journalist when almost everyone sees you as biased or against them, when in fact everyone is biased.
Do you have any type of news that you prefer to work on? What is it?
I think I'm pretty much in love with the kind of news I'm doing right now, political news, because of course it's hard because the issues we're trying to explain are often complex, but it's also it's both a challenge and privilege for me. It's challenging to present political stories in a way that will not make you sound like a PR machine of any politician. But it's also a privilege because you get to ask questions on behalf of the people. Like I always see myself as someone asking not my own questions, but the questions I believe the people would want to ask of their leaders. Because journalists like me have unrivaled access to those people in power, the powers that we. And I am in a unique position to use that access to help the people understand what's going on in government. Because it's important for any democracy, for citizens to be able to understand their government, to hold them accountable. And for them to be able to do that, we need the media that reports as accurately as possible.
How about on news that are sensitive to emotions? How do you deal with news?
Like anong klase? For example. Okay, number one rule is compassion. Compassion over truth. So we always want to report everything. Dapat natin balita. But for me, and this is also the reminder to us by our company, if you think that your story will cause more harm than good, then it would be better not to air it or not to use it. So we always put compassion about it. We always try to minimize the harm. We think our story will be injurious to people, if it will be insensitive to the emotions of people who lost a loved one, for example, then we won't use that story. And one specific way of doing that is if someone's complaining, talagang kumahabol yung umiiyak. I personally, as a journalist, will try to stay away and give that person space. I can take my video from afar if it's really required. Of course, individual journalists have different styles, but that's how I do it.
Have you experienced being in contract with certain news you are actually reporter? How do you manage being in contract?
What do you mean in contrast? Paano yung gusto?
Yung kumbaga may gusto ko yung i-report, then hindi yung nakuha niya. So, ano po yung...
Anong magiging siya?
Example, since ang focus niyo po is politics,
We know what we're talking about.
then
Thank you. Tama.
Example, since si politics po yung focus nyo, may ibang nagbibigay sa inyo ng example, massacre, gano'n. Tatanggapin niyo po ba or parang sabihin na, pwede bang may politics na lalong?
Hindi. Cannot say no to your editors. Of course, paminsan-minsan, pwede ka naman tumanggi. Pero most of the time, you have to be a team player and cooperate and do what they ask you. And yeah, there are stories that I just don't like covering. To be honest, I'm agnostic. So I wasn't really in the mood to cover the books. I felt like, what's the fuss about? But you know, I have to be there because the job requires it. Of course, I cannot say I'm objective, but
Okay lang.
no one's. I want to disabuse you, that there's objective because there's not. We all journalists are people, we are persons, we are coming from somewhere. And like it or not, our biases, our milieu, our beliefs, the things we hold, our core, all reflect on the way we present the news. So for example, if a Catholic journalist were to report on the book's arrival, he or she would be very, very excited and ecstatic. And I'm sure you saw that in the coverage. People were like, "Saan Papa, ano na, parang sa likod ko." In contrast to me, I just stood there and just said it as a fact. The book was just passed. This convoy is just passed. That's it. It's not bad. It's not bad. There are really differences in the way journalists report depending on where they're coming from. So I, as a Filipino, half Chinese, openly gay guy, will see things in my own perspective. Probably other journalists won't see. Diba, yung Pride March sa Malate. Sa Manila. Para sa akin, malaking bagay yun. It's something that we have to celebrate. It's something that's very important for because where I'm coming from. But for other journalists, it's just any ordinary event, probably a nuisance. Itong nangyayaring rally sa EDSA, you're an Iglesia ni Cristo member, that's something that you will find. So, and if you're an Iglesia reporter kaya taga-Net 25 ka, talaga yung paglalabo na mapayapan ito sa pag-ibig. Napansin nyo ba? Try nyo madadal na 25 yun. Di ba iba, right? Pag pinanood mo EBS or other stations, ang na-highlight namin yung service sa traffic, yung basura, iniiwan nila. And that's fine. So you see, wala talaga objective. Ang meron lang is, our reporting is a product of our own background, included our own beliefs. But the best we can do is to be fair, see all sides, even if you don't like that side. I talk to politicians at all time, kasi I need to get this.
What risks do you have as a journalist taking reviews in a story?
Depends on the kind of story. Political stories, basically, wala nang risk. Kasi sa loob kang iba sa Senate, komportable pa kayo. But there's risk of churning out stories that just echo whatever politicians are saying. That's a great risk. Parang kung ano lang sabihin nila, ilalagay ko sila. Parang parang PR machine nila, diba? And that's always a challenge we have to confront. How do we produce stories that get their side and at the same time not pander to them? May ganun. And of course, when you cover storms and other natural disasters, there are always physical logistical challenges to doing that. I've experienced that before, like covered in the bagyo, dito lang at may mga mahirap talaga kasi kailangan yung presence of mind mo nandiyan. Kahit anong mangyari, kailangan mapapag yung story mo kasi walang kwenta yung pagsuko mo sa bagyo. Kung hindi rin naman, umabot o hindi mo na ipadala ang kwenta. Kailangan mong creative ka, kailangan magawa mo lahat ng gagawin mo para lang umabot o may padala yung story mo sa news desk. And one recent example was Indonesia. Sa Mary Jane, nagpunta ako doon, one-man team. So, ako lang yung cameraman, ako rin yung editor, ako rin yung record. And that was mentally, physically taxing. But, when you're already there, no matter how hard it is, it's always about your story. It's always about getting it published. And that's very exciting. it's very broad. The word free. Free from what? And of course, in the Philippines, we are free from state control. The government does not regulate us. And we love it. We can publish any story that we want without fear of getting jailed. Unlike, for example, in China, where it is censored, or in Singapore, where there's a sedition act. But at the same time, I can't say that we are totally free because we are controlled by other interests than journalism. So we have business and advertising interests in the case of television media. We don't report everything. We report on something that will attract you, something that will increase our ratings, and that's bad. I don't know if that's good or bad. Bad at it. But you can't say that the kind of media system is free when you have all these interests controlling it. So yeah, I can say we're free from government control. That's factual. But call the Philippine media completely free, I don't think that's true.
So what's the hardest you've done against poverty?
Yun nga, inilit siya kasi yung challenges na mag-isa ka. Tapos, hindi mo naiintindihan yung mga tao. Tapos, ako lang din. Kasi, actually, that's the track that they have. They're training our journalists to be one-man reporting. Kailangan marunong mag-editing sila. Yun, so ang grabing challenge kasi reporter na ako, doon pa ako, tingnan mo naman. Tapos, foreign lang. And then, of course, yung impeachment kaya ng 2012. Kasi, for 44 days, I had to go live every night for TV Control to explain to the viewers what happened within, say, a 5-hour hearing. So, kailangan, maintindihan mo talaga ng gusto para maipaliwanag mo yung isa na at maintindihan nila kung ano. And that's, I think, the challenge for us, reporting on politics and governance. Often, again, our subjects, the issues we report on are very complex. We have to find ways to make them simple without being simplistic.
What do you think is the most valuable lesson you learned?
I think that this is both a blessing, a privilege, and a burden. I always realize that when I'm out in the field. I'm very privileged to be given the chance to work for a news organization with enough resources to take us to where the story is. For example, something happened in some remote part of the Philippines. We have the resources to send me there and report on the story. That's a big privilege. Not everyone gets to do that. But at the same time, there's a burden of it. The challenge on the journalist to be able to report on that story as fairly and as accurately as possible. It may not be the whole truth. Again, it's very tricky to define what the truth is. But at least as a journalist, your task is to be able to get the best obtainable version. I'm quoting Will Warren and I forgot the name. But yeah, it's both a blessing and a challenge. You really have to love this job with a passion to be able to survive.
So far, ano po yung greatest achievement na in the field of broadcasting?
Wala. No, I think it's
Yung mga awards po ba kayo?
sa company na bigyan ako ng award of excellence 2020 precisely for impeachment coverage. Parang gusto ko talaga. Hindi ko naman naramdaman siya. Tapos on air no, nalala ko si Corina sa isang live report kinag-graduate niya for the public. I guess I did great there. And of course, I was accepted to a scholarship to study international journalism in London for a year. And that was really good. And you know, I'm very hungry and hindi ngayon in terms of my career. I still want to do more. And I can never stay still. Content myself with what I already have. I still